Hey guys, it's me, SD Vaughn, here with another video. I'm going to be doing a non-spoiler review for My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission. I saw it opening weekend. Wanted to give it a couple days before I made a video on it, get my thoughts together before I discuss this movie. Especially now, I like the way this looks here with the mic. So where do I even begin about this movie? Um, I guess I should just start. It's basically how you saw the trailer. It's about a dude named Fleck Turn who sees quirks as a disease, kind of like Overhaul. Literally, his plot is similar to that of the Overhaul arc. Um, he wants to get rid of the world of quirks, and he wants to, make it a quirkless society. So he has all these bombs that are placed in 25 countries, which then causes, all these world heroes to break up into teams along with the hero students to then go to these 25 countries and stop him. Because Fleckturn, the reason why also is because Fleckturn has this organization called Humorize, which is, they call it a terrorist organization, which they have to go stop, find the source of the bombs, find a way to stop these bombs, stop Humorize, stop Fleckturn from, getting rid of Quirk Society altogether. And of course, I guess, also hurting, people in the consequence of his bombs, and all that, save people with a smile, as Dickie would say. But that's like a general gist of the movie, basically a summary. It's a pretty good movie. I thought it was fine. I enjoyed it. I like the newest character, Rhodey Soul, that we saw in the movie. I liked his interactions with Deku and his scenes. I thought were hilarious and funny. I like the backstory that he has with his siblings, just seeing his interactions before he meets up with Deku. And I really enjoyed those. I enjoyed the fights and the animations. The story was fine for what it was. And just overall, just like, the characters that we know, Deku, Bakugo, Shoto, Endeavor, all the characters are as they are as we've known them if you've been watching the anime or reading the manga. And before I go any further, I think this would, I think if this movie was canon, I don't even know if the other movies are canon. Some people keep saying they're canon or not. I'm never really sure. But if this movie was to take place, it would be right after. Of course, obviously, it'd be right after season 5 because of the Endeavor Agency arc, which takes place before the events of what will take place in season 6, known as the War arc. So, yeah, especially since you see all the characters doing certain techniques that they did in the joint training arc, like you'll see with Tokoyami and a couple other characters and whatnot. But Tokoyami is like the most one that was easiest for me to spot because of his, the way he used his quirk with in this movie. But it's generally a good movie. I enjoyed it. However, I think the movie could have been a little bit better and more interesting if they had went with the the ideology of the main villain, Fleck Turn, because he's basing most of what he believes quirks to be a disease based on a theory that's been mentioned twice in the My Hero Academia main storyline. And I thought that was cool that they brought that into this story, and I thought maybe if they expanded more with that in this movie, especially with the fact that he's trying to make a quirkless society, and Deku used to be quirkless, and the fact that all of Hero Society, quirks, everything, or just seeing how quirkless people react to it, and everything. I think it would have been far more interesting, but it's just a baseline for his motivation. And then of course he also has his backstory too, which adding on to that ideology, to that to the theory that's being put in place in the story for why he's doing what he's doing. And his backstory is fine. It was cool because also his backstory goes in tandem to the main storyline too, with with quirks, relating to quirks. So I like how it all kind of relates to each other. His backstory and the theory that he's using that's that's in the main storyline, for his ideology and everything else. So I thought that was pretty cool. I just wish it could have been used more in the story. I think it would have made it even greater, especially with the fact that we have all these heroes. This is a global threat, and it's affecting quirk society, and he's trying to make a quirkless society. So I thought it would have been really cool that way, but they didn't really go that route. Instead, for like most of the movie, we get introduced to the villain at the beginning of the story. It's really cool because it sets the tone for what kind of villain this is and why it is that all these heroes need to go after him. And then after that, we get settled into our characters and what they're going to do here from out on stopping this villain. But then it just goes for most of the movie into this road trip esque kind of couple of scenes with Deku and Rhodey, and their interactions and bonding time for most of the movie. And sure, you'll have some of the villains. For me, they're just more like obstacles. They're just in the way. They're just there to be the villains that they are. And then Deku and of course the other characters have to beat them, get past them to achieve their goal. It just felt like that for me with some of the villains. They're just there to be there. They're just there to facilitate the fact that we need this scene, we need this obstacle, we need this to happen, so it can't be too easy for the heroes to do what they need to do. They're just there to be there. Which is fine because I enjoyed the fights. I enjoyed the animation. And one of the characters has this like creepy laugh that I enjoyed. And it really, and the fact that the way he just laughs, I really need to hear the dub version of it. But beyond that, it's just like, Fleck Turn was the only villain that really interested me in the movie. That's because we get to know more about him than the other villains. But I wish he was more active. Like I said, I wish we got to see more of his ideology and this theory that of course, akin to also his backstory, play out more in the story and see how it affects other characters throughout the story and makes it more troublesome for the heroes and as they're trying to stop him, because it sounds like this is a big organization. So especially with how he makes the bombs to take down Quirk society. I think it would have been a little bit far more interesting to the story. But a lot of it just takes a back seat to Deku and Rhodey and the couple of scenes that they have throughout the movie. And it's just like, it's just them. And then we, because it's the introduction of the villain. And then we get to our heroes. And then, some of the plot happens. That's pertaining to the story, because literally most of the plot is focused on a small number of characters, and even though it's a World Heroes Mission movie, and I just was watching a video, and I think this can sum it up to a point. The other heroes are just there to facilitate their role for the World Heroes, title. They're just there, because there's 25 countries, you're going to need all these heroes spread out in all these 25 countries to do what needs to be done to stop this villain. And they're just there. They have some scenes. They're good. They're nice, but they're not really that integral to the story. Like, what I mean by that is they don't really affect the plot moving forward. They're just there to do their part in the movie to assist the other characters that are actually effectively moving the plot and moving it forward. And, moving along. And there are like two scenes in the movie that really irked me. That's because to me it was just so super convenient that they happen the way they do. It may seem like nitpicks, but they just but otherwise, they were fine. They just irked me in that way because they just seem like conveniences, like how lucky it was that this character happened to be where they were at this time where they were for this event to happen as the story takes place. Although I will say some scenes did surprise me, especially with some of the villains. Like, I didn't expect this, and I was just kind of shocked that they put this scene happen with this villain. But otherwise, like I said before, the villains are just there to facilitate their role of being that obstacle for the heroes during, like in any other movie, for most fodder villains or just intermediary villains. I think, like, I don't even think we even get really names for most of the characters unless you had, and let me see if I can find it. Unless you had this book, which was given to my local theater when I went to go see the movie opening weekend. Unless you had this book, this gives you details on all the characters that are in the movie, sketches, a Q&A from Horikoshi, and some panels that tell events prior to the events of the movie. I don't think the characters, I can't remember if some of the characters said their names other than like Fleck Turn. Like Lee and my friend, after we saw the movie, literally had to look up their names because we didn't know who they were. There's not really much about them. Like, they're like two villains. Literally, they're only there for like this one scene, and that's it. There is one villain who's there for a couple scenes, and then after that, after she facilitated her role, she's just, never. We don't see her for the rest of the movie. She was still kind of cool, but it kind of sucks. We don't really get to, like, you can kind of infer what she's about in the movie. Which is kind of good. Like, we see how determined she is and what she's kind of about in the movie. And, but other than that, it just kind of sucks. She's just kind of, there to facilitate this one part of his organization, especially since you see her in the beginning of the movie too. And I wish we could have seen more about how their organization is, especially with other characters, more in depth about it. Like, we do kind of see this also now I'm thinking about with the same villain with the creepy laugh when he explains a little bit about himself and why he's doing what he's doing a little bit. But that's pretty much it. It's like, one line of dialogue, and that's kind of it. But overall, it's a good movie. But most of the storyline is kind of based off of Overhaul's arc, with the fact that, Overhaul wanted to get rid of Quirk Society as well, but he's doing it with Quirk wasting bullets. This dude, Fleck Turn, is doing it with bombs. And he has a different motivation, different reasoning behind it, and of course a different backstory than Overhaul. But I like that a lot of what Fleck Turn is doing is somewhat picking up from things in the manga itself, like the Quark theory that's been like spoken about like twice in the story of My Hero Academia, both in the anime and manga. Along with also his backstory, which ties into what Toga's backstory is in the manga. If you've seen it in the anime in season 5, it ties into that, which I thought was pretty cool. That they did that a little bit. Like, it doesn't really tie together like the two characters, but it's like his backstory is a lot like how what was talked about with Toga's backstory and some other characters' backstories in the main storyline, so that with their quirks and everything, and how it affects Quirk Society and Hero Society and all that. So I thought that was pretty cool. Speaking of all that, I like how Rhodey also mentions a little bit about how Hero Society was affecting things in the story too. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. But overall, I think the story could have been a little bit more interesting, involving more of that in the story. And developing more on that ideology in the bombs and everything, the quirks, but it was still a fine story. I think some things could have been cut with some of that road trip with Deku and Rhodey, but I still enjoyed it. I loved their interactions, and again, I was laughing and everything. Some minor conveniences I thought, for me, it seemed like nitpicks. I thought were conveniences, all that. And then some things I just thought, how did this work? Or were they able to do this in this span of time? And, what was going on here? But overall, it was cool. It just sucks that it didn't feel like a World Heroes mission. It just felt like, small group of heroes doing their thing, but we have all these other heroes helping out, kind of on the sidelines doing their part. We get a couple dialogues from, Chaco and a couple other characters that we know and love throughout the series, and that's just pretty much it. And they're just facilitating their role. They're just there to be there to make it more intense for our characters that we are focusing on in the movie. They're just there to make it so, the gravity of the situation and the stakes, and that's just pretty much it. But other than that, it was a fine movie. I enjoyed it. I liked it. So let me know if you guys are going to watch it. Let me know if you guys have watched it. What did you guys think of this review? Was I thorough enough? I try to be less vague about it, but also not spoilish enough that I'm spoiling certain scenes in the movie. And, but but also make it a good enough review that you guys can maybe gauge on whether or not this was a good movie or not. Like if I had to say, I would still put Heroes Rising above this movie. Like out of the 3 movies, Heroes Rising is my favorite movie out of the 3 My Hero Academia movies. But this movie's still fine. It's a fine movie. I thought it was going to be a little bit better because it's involving the world's heroes, multiple heroes in the plot. But it's not as big as I thought it was going to be. I still think the fight against Nine was far more interesting than with the big bad villain here, Fleck Turn. But yeah, and I keep repeating myself. It's a fine movie. I enjoyed it. But let me know what you guys think. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace.